Very good evening, Pawan, Meher. Okay. So I think we should get started now. Okay. Any questions so far? Do let me know. Okay. So we have seen so far. Okay. Yesterday we saw how to work with list, isn't it? Before yesterday, day before we saw how to work with string. Now we'll see how to create a function. So far we've been using inbuilt functions, right? We used print, input, len we saw day before yesterday when we were talking about string. Now, these are all functions which are pre-built, inbuilt. That means somebody has written code for that. Okay. Now, what we have to do is we have to build our own function. So what is a function? Function is set of block of code. Okay, it's a set of code, block of code, which we define a name. Okay, so that in future, if we need to call those lines of code, we can call anytime, anywhere. Okay, so let's say I have print, like, what's your name? How are you? Where do you live? Okay, let's say these are 3 lines of code which you want to call often. So what I'll do is I will give these 3 lines code a name. So def my func1, okay, bracket open and close, colon. And then I will put all these 3 statements inside def. So what I'm doing, I'm creating a function. And how do you create a function? You create a function with keyword def. So def, and I give my own name. I call it as my func1. Okay. So def my func1, bracket open and close, colon. Okay, this is how you define a function. Now, when you define a function, okay, and when you call it, this is P4, right? Nothing will happen. Okay, because we have just defined it. We are not using it, right? Now let's start using it. How do we use it? We will call this function here, my func1. Okay, now I'm calling it my func1. Now when I call it, that's when the functions will get executed. We have thousands of functions which are written. Okay, until unless we call them, these functions will not be called. Okay, so when you run it, see, the line is executed. Okay, so this is how you define a function. Okay, and you use a function. Using we know, right? Okay, we have been using the function so far, right? But first time we are writing our own function and we are using it. All right. Okay. So, okay, so you have my func1. Now we will learn how to pass value to a function. Before that, we have something called as doc string. Okay, which is also called as document string. Now this is a string, a multi-line string. It is a string which is multi-line string, and first line in the function. So how do you define a multi-line function? You define a multi-line function using triple quotation. You define multi-line function using triple quotation. Okay. So I say triple quotation. This is a sample function to see the working of a function. This is a sample function to see the working of a function. So what's the advantage of writing this? Now, see, you have so many functions, right? Which function to use, when to use, okay? What does function do? Okay, so by default, what we do is we write a comment here in multi-line, okay? Advantage of this is that when you want to use it, okay, before you use, you can actually see the details about the function. Okay, so if I want to know the details of my function one before using it, I will do here something like this. Okay, print. Let me print a line here. Now I'm going to say print. Print function name. Okay, in function name we don't define the bracket open and close. We simply say print my function. Okay, then dot underscore underscore DAC underscore. Okay, dot underscore underscore DOC underscore. This means I want to print the documentation of this function. I want to print the documentation for this function. Okay, no bracket open and close, right? Generally, when we use the function, we say bracket open and close. Here we are not calling the function, not using the function. We simply say function name dot underscore underscore DOC underscore underscore. And now when you run it, you see, this is a sample function to see the working of a function. This is exact same line that you give here. So that when you start using a function, okay, you want to see more details about the function. What is function, why it is used, how it is used, right? All those things you write here. So that the user can first check the details about the function and then decide whether to use it or not. Okay. So, okay. So all the inbuilt functions all have docstring. All the inbuilt functions. Okay. All the inbuilt functions have docstring. So if you want to know the details of inbuilt functions, you can say print function name dot underscore underscore. See, whenever you see this underscore underscore DOC, right? Okay. Whenever see underscore underscore DOC underscore underscore, okay, you assume you know or for that matter, not only DOC. Whenever you see underscore underscore something, okay, double underscore something, double underscore, they're all inbuilt value. They have a predefined meaning. Okay. So whenever you see underscore underscore something underscore underscore, both the side underscore, they have a predefined meaning. Okay, so what is the predefined meaning of DOC? Documentation string. Okay, so the print is another inbuilt function, right? If you want to see the documentation of print, you run it and see what happens. You see, okay, from here. This is the documentation string that print has it. Okay, any inbuilt function you take, int, dot, underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. Okay, from here. Int x is integer. Int x base 10 integer. Convert a number or string to an integer or return 0 if no arguments are given. If x is number, return x dot int, right? This is the documentation of, okay? Okay, good to know, isn't it? Now let's come back to our topic, which is to create a function. Now, I want to pass a member. I want to pass a value to my func1. Okay, so let me create another function called def, and it's always good. Okay, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to write documentation string for all the function because okay, we want to focus on learning functions, right? But when you create a functions, always have documentation string, always have document. Okay, okay. Now I'm going to create my new function called my func2 bracket open and close, and I say here, okay. Now here my func2 will take A, B, C, three variables. So we need to pass three variables to this function. Great. Now I'm going to print the value. I'm going to say print values of A, B, and C are A, comma, B, and C respectively, right? And I'll put F here, indicating it's a format string, right? And now I'll say total equal to A plus B plus C, and I'll say print total is total. Perfect. Okay, so function2 is declared, no problem. Okay, now let me call my func2. I'm going to call my func2 and I'm going to pass values like 5, 10, and 15. Okay, so see, it says 5. So PyCharm is suggesting me that you have first A, then B, and then C, right? So I'm giving values to A, B, and C. So, okay, so when you run it, okay, your A, B, C, see, it says A, B, C are 5, 10, 15 respectively. Respectively spelling, I got it wrong. Let me fix it first. Total is 30. How did we get it? Okay. Okay. So we call this as, okay, positional, sorry, not dollar, pound, required positional arguments. Required positional argument. What is required? Required means it's mandatory. It's mandatory. You have to give the value. Positional means, okay, see, there are three values A, B, C. So I have to pass three values. That's what required means. Okay, so if I pass two values and here it takes 3, when I run it, you see, it says missing one required positional argument C. A and B. So two values when I give, which one will take? A and B will take. C will not get it. Why only A, B will get? Why not C? Why not B, C? Why not A, C? Because it is positional. Positional means it is left to right. Leftmost 5 will go to leftmost A. Middle 10 will go to middle B. And extreme right is expecting the value for C. So that's why it say positional. Okay, it says positional. You have to give in exactly same position, first, second, third. So A will take first, B will take second, and C will get third value, right? So it is positional. Required means you have to give. Okay, There are three variables, so you have to give three values. Otherwise, it will not work. Right? Okay. Now, so let me give 5, 10, 15 here, which is required positional argument. So we know now what is required, what does required means, and what does positional means. We know about this. Now, let's say we forget positional. Okay. So let's say positional be there. But can we get rid of required? Can we get rid of required? Where I don't want C to be required. Okay, yes, we can do that. But when we don't give the value for C, when we don't say it is required, it has to have some value on its own. Right? Now, if you need three numbers to perform your task, you need three numbers. If I tell you that I will not give you third number. If I tell you I don't give you third number, then how can you do any calculations? You need three numbers to do calculation. So if you have to have something on your own, right? Well, then you'll say, okay, fine, I will take this one. So we call it as default value. Default value means, okay, if you don't give me, I will take this. So when you say this is what happens. My func2, I'm going to call this as my func3. Everybody is clear about what I'm doing, right? So I'm going to define another function called my fun3, and this time I'm saying C equal to 0. So A and B are required. Okay. Required positional, and C is positional but not required. Not required means default. So I'm saying C has a default value of 0. C has a default value of 0. That means when you do not give C value, it should take default value 0. If you give it, it should take what you give it. But if you don't give it, it should take 0. For example, if I say here, I'm going to say here, print calling my func3 below. Okay, and then I'm going to say here, my func3. Okay, A and B are compulsory. See, it says A and B compulsory. C is default. So I'm going to say 10, 20. Okay. Now, when I say 10, 20, you run it and see what happens. Value of A, B, and C are 10 and 20 and 0. Since we did not give the value for C, it took the default value that we assigned there in the function definition, which is 0. Total is 10 plus 20 plus 0, which is 30. Okay. Now you can also say here 10, 20, 30. Now, when you give the value for C, it will take the value that you have given. It will take the value that you have given. Then it will ignore the default value. Then it will ignore the default value. So here it will take 30, not 0, because we are giving it. When we don't give it, that's when you have to take on your own whatever is default given. With me, everyone? Did you understand? So far we have seen three types of functions. Function which does not take any argument. Function that takes required as well as positional argument. Then we discussed function which is non-required or default. Function with default values. Okay. Now default value will always be on the right side, never be on the left side. Okay. Why? Because let's say if I make B as default and I don't make C as default, then what happens? C we have to give, and the position of C is third. Now, if position of C is third and you have to give for C, okay, then you have to give for B also, right? So there is no meaning of saying B is default. If you have to give value for B, so what's the point of making B default? No point, isn't it? So if there is no point of making B as default, then why do you make it default? You cannot. I can make C and B both default. Now C equal to 0, B equal to 0 is fine. Okay. In this case, B and C. So what I'm trying to say here is that all the default values should be on the right, and non-default value, which is required values, should be on the left. Okay. So if you have A, B, and C as default, B and C should be on the right. A should be on the left. I cannot say B equal to 0, A and C equal to 0. Okay. Because if you put something in between as required, that means everything up to that number has to be required. Then what's the point of making it, declaring it default? Okay. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind. Okay. So let's do an example here. Let's do an example. We'll try to implement a program using functions. So I'm going to write a function which will take a number and tell whether it is prime or not. Okay. So I will write a function here. See, function has to be written before you call. I can't call you before you are given a name. Only when you are given a name, I know who you are and I can call you, isn't it? I can't call you before you're given a name, right? So you have to define a function before you call it. Anywhere you can define it, first, last, okay? But once you define it, only then I can call it. So I cannot say, line number 29 def is prime. I cannot say def is prime here and then call is prime here. No, this is wrong. I can only call it after I define it. So let me define it is prime. So is prime will take a number n and it will return true if it is prime and false if it is not a prime. Okay, so let's say I define, or it will print rather. Okay, so I'm going to write here is prime is a function that takes a parameter n and checks and prints if it's a prime number or not. It's a multi-line, so you can give it in 2 lines. Okay. Now here, I'm going to check if it is prime or not. So is prime is a function that takes a parameter and check and prints if it's a prime number or not. Okay. So I'm going to define result equal to true. Okay. Or prime equal to true, let's say. Okay. What I'll do is I will run a loop for what are prime numbers? Prime numbers are numbers that are divisible by itself and 1, no other number. No other number can divide it perfectly except 1 and the number itself. Okay. So I will check in range 2, comma, n by 2. So I'm checking between and then I'll add 1 to it. Okay. So I'm checking from 2 because 1 anyway it will divide all the numbers. So I'm checking from 2, 2, 3, 4 up to n by 2. So if I have to check if 10 is prime or not, I have to check up to n by 2 plus 1, that is 6. That means from 2 to 5, if any number is dividing n perfectly or not. If it divides perfectly, then it's not a prime. Otherwise, it's a prime. All right, let's see. So I'm going to say for I in range 2 comma n by 2, okay, if n modulo I equal to 0, then you say prime equal to false. So I have assumed that number is prime and I'm going to divide by numbers. And if the number is perfectly divisible, that's when I know that it's not a prime and I'll stop it. Okay. And I will say break. So see, I'm using break in a for loop. You can use in any loop, right? I told you break will throw you out of the loop. Which loop? Any loop. Whether you say while or for, it doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Okay. So here, okay, I'm going to say false, break. The moment you figure out it is perfectly divisible, I'm going to stop. Now I'm going to print it. If prime, that means if it is true, I will say print. I can put here n comma is a prime number. Else print n comma is not a prime number. Okay. Now is prime 10. So I'm calling and passing 10 to it. So see, 10 is not a prime. 11 is a prime number. You see, this is how you use a function with required argument. The moment I don't pass 11, it will give me error saying you have not found value, you have not given value for n, right? Okay. Right. Now, I want to modify this program to print list of prime numbers. I want to modify this program. See, there's already a function which will tell me if that number is prime or not. So between 5 and 500, okay, between let's say 100 and 500, let me write it and then talk about it. I want to print a list of all the values that are prime between 100 and 500. I want to find list of values between 100 and 500 which are prime. Now, see, I have already written a function to check whether number is prime or not. So can I modify it? Can I reuse it? Okay. So what I'll do, I will run a for loop in the main program. Okay. In the main program, I will run a for loop for, let's say, k in range 100 comma 501 because I want between 500 and 500. So I'll say 100 comma 500. and I will pass this value k to is prime. And is prime will tell me prime, right? Is prime will tell me if k is prime or not. If it is prime, if is prime k, then print k, otherwise don't print k. Good logic, right? So is prime is checking for me if number is prime or not. So I will take each value from the list, pass to it, and get to know whether if it is prime, then print it. If it is not a prime, don't print it, right? So I'm saying printing list of prime numbers from 100 to 500. Okay. Now you see in this case, it is printing it here. So I really can't use this. I really can't use this function because this function is printing prime or not prime. So if I use this, okay, and if I run it, what happens? Okay, it will tell me each number like this. Is prime, not a prime, not a prime, not a prime. Is prime, not a prime, not a prime, not a prime, is prime, right? This is not what we want. So when you are writing a function, creating a function, try to make it more generic. See, logic is there, but I can't reuse the function because it is printing it there. So what I'm trying to tell you is, whenever you are writing a function, try to make it more generic. If you make it more generic, it will have more usage. Okay. If you are very specific, then you will not have many usage. So here, okay, instead of saying if, instead of printing this, I will delete it. And I'm going to say return. Now, return is a keyword that means that function has to return the value to the main program. Okay, so you have function that take input parameters. Input parameters is to give the value to the function. Return is to take the value from the function. Return will return a value from the function to us. Okay, so I'm going to say return here prime. Okay, so if you want to check if this number is prime or not, you create a something like this, out like this, and now you check if out is prime number, otherwise not a number, right? Okay, and you pass here. Okay, you pass n equal to 11, you pass n here. So what I did, the printing part, I'm not doing in the function, I'm doing in the main here. Okay, this prime is only giving us true or false. So see, when you know it is true or false, you can do your own printing here. The advantage of this is, same function can be used to do two things. One, to check if a number is prime or not. Second, to generate a range of prime numbers between given values. Did you understand yet what I did? Please please respond in the chat. I'm trying to make function more generic. I'm trying to make function which will have more usage. So if I do the print statement in the function, okay, then it is good for function where they need to print it. You're saving some space time, but not always you will end up printing. You might end up using that, input that number for something else. Okay, so and what something else that you want to do, that you want to print, not this. For example, in this range, I want to print the range of values. I don't want to print number is prime or not. Just take the range and print if it is prime or not. This is what we say as making it more generic. Thank you, Pawan Tej. I got only one response. Now when I run this, you see, okay, both our purpose is solved. So see, 11 is a prime number. Now printing list of prime numbers between 100 and 500. 101, 3, 7, 9, 13, 727, 131. So it is not printing the values which are not prime. Isn't it interesting? So try to make your functions generic so that it will have multiple use cases. You can use it at multiple places. While doing so, we have learned the concept of return values as well. So function can have input values, input arguments, or may not have. Function can have return value or may not have. When it does not have a return value and when you try to return something, you get none. Okay, so that means it's not, when you see none, it means it is not returning any value. Make sense? Yes or no? We'll talk about one more concept, guys. Okay, which is probably we'll do last for the day and we'll end it. Tomorrow we'll start talking about class and objects. So we'll talk about functions where order is also not important. Position is also not important. So we started with required positional. Then we said, no, required is not important. We can have default values. Now we are saying that position is not important. We can have keyword arguments. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you have ABC here, my func2, let's take my func2 ABC. We are talking about non-positional or what we call as keyword arguments. Okay, so we'll print it. Working of okay. Now let's say here I have my func, right? So I'm going to call my func. While calling, you have A, B, C there, right? Now I'm going to use same variable that is there in the function declare for keyword. Use same arguments that are already there. So when you have A, B, C, you say A equal to 70 and I will say here B equal to 45 and I'm going to say C equal to 90. Okay. So if I had said 75, if I had said 45, 70 and 90, if I had said 45, 70, 90, 45 would have gone to A, 70 to B, and 90 to C. Now what I did, I just changed the position for B and C. Now 45 will go to B. It's no longer positional because I'm using keyword A while calling the function. So when I'm calling keyword, you see here, A is 70, not 45. I said A equal to 70, so A took 70. B took 45. And C took 90 because I gave C at the end and also call it as C equal to. Okay. So not only, the positional, you can also play with this position by using equal to. Kind of, when you call the function, you define which objects you want. Okay. I can put C here. C equal to 50. When you say C equal to 50, now you run it. 45, 70 is A, B is 45, and C is 50. This is called required positional argument. With me, everyone. So these are how you define functions. You can have functions with arguments, functions without argument is like your positional, and you can have with default argument or required values. Okay. Okay. Now I'll talk about a concept called as modules. What is a module? Anyone? Module is a concept, okay, where you define, okay, multiple functions in a file and then you use it. Okay. What I mean to say is, let's say I've defined 4 or 5 functions like this. Okay. And those are important, and you say that you want to use it. Of course, right? Okay. When you write some good functions, you want, your friends to use it, right? Then how do I pass on to you? How do I pass these functions to you? So what Python says is create the modules. Modules is nothing but it's a file. It's a Python file with all the functions. So I have created a Python file p4.py, and I will save this and give it to you, saying p4 has all my functions, use it. Okay. So let's say you save p4 in the same location, and then you create your file p5. Okay. Let me delete p5. You create a file p5, and in p file I'll say import p4. P4 is a file which I have written the functions and sent to you, right? You say p4. The moment you say p4, see, p4 is called. I don't want to call p4. I want to use the function. I don't want to call p4. So now when you are creating your file, okay, p4 here, let's look at all the functions which are in the main. This is main. Okay. All these are main. All these are main. Yes. So what it says is all these main thing, you delete it. You delete all the main. Now when I go and run p5, see, nothing is called here. But when you delete it, it serves my purpose. But let's say you are the owner of p4, you want to test it, you want to build your application. Then deleting it will not perform your job, will not satisfy your requirement. So we have something called as name equal to main. So if name equal to main, okay, then you call all these. Okay, I told you all these double underscore, something double underscore have predefined meaning. These are variables with predefined meaning. You don't have to define what it is. You can start using it by itself. So what does name indicate? See, when you run a file, right? What is the main file that you have run? P5. P5 is the main file that I have run. But of course, since you are using functions from P2, P2 will also get executed. So what it says is, name says, name will be lookout on which file it has called. Is it being called by the same file? No. Answer is no. We are not calling these functions in the same file. We are calling from P5, different file. The name will not be main. Main is the file, okay, that is being directly called. Name is main for the file that is directly called. P2 is not directly called. So P2 will no longer be main. So this condition becomes false and none of this gets executed. If you call P5, P2 directly, if you call P2 directly, then that condition becomes true and everything else will be executed. Make sense? So now when I put this name and when I run our P4, then all these are called. All they are called when you run P4 because name is main here. But when I call P5, no, none of them is called because name is not main there. In fact, name is now P5. This is the name equal to main. Okay. So now when you call P4, none of them is called. But I want to use the function that you have created there, isn't it? So I will say here P4 dot, you see, my fun1, P4 dot, my fun2, so 9, 99, 999. Okay, you can call any of those functions. So see, this is my func1 default one. This is your my func2, 999, 999. You can call them. This is how you call a module and functions from a module. So function which are already defined in a module. With me, everyone. Did you understand how we call a module, functions from a module? Yes. There are different ways to call it, okay? Okay, there are different ways to call it. One way is you call import P4. So this import P4, all the functions of P4 is available. And when you don't want to call all the functions of P4, okay, you can call only some functions. So I'm going to say from P4 import only my func2. Now when I say from import from P4 import my func2, that means I don't want other functions to come to be made available. Okay, so I'm going to comment this part, comment this part, comment this part. So when I say from P4 import my function2, my function2 will be available directly. You do not have to say P4 dot. Okay, because I imported my func2, so my func2 is directly available for you to run it. My func2 is directly available for you to use it. Okay, no need to say P4 dot. Directly you say my func2 or you say P4 dot. You can sometimes even rename it, alias. So you don't like P4. P4 is a file name. So you have to use P4, no excuse, right? But let's say you don't like P4. You said, no, this is not cool. I want to give a cool name to P4. Of course, you can rename it. So you will say import P4 as my own module. My own module looks cool here. So I'll say import P4 because P4 is a file and so I have to use it as my own module. So instead of saying P4 dot, now you will say my own module dot. Okay, my func1. My own module dot my func1. Okay, so this is how you can rename a module if you want to. So we have seen three ways of calling a module. One, directly call the module name and renames with, directly call. Okay, so first is directly call import and then you say module name dot. Then second is we rename the module. We don't like the name, original name. So we'll rename using as new name and then say new name dot. Third is you don't want to import all the functions. You want to import specific functions. Then you say from P4 import the list of functions that you want. You want my func2, my func3, whatever. So now in third case, you can directly use a function name. You don't have to mention the module name. Okay, so this is how you create a function. This is how you create a module. Okay, we'll also talk about the documentation string, right? How to create documentation string, how to import, right? What is the sequence of name equal to main, and finally printing the value, okay, from different function. Make sense? Yes. We'll stop here, guys. Today we'll learn how to create functions and modules and how to use them, of course. Tomorrow when we meet, we'll talk about class and objects. Sounds cool? Okay, so we'll stop here. Please practice them and we'll see you tomorrow with class and objects. If you have questions, please post it in the chat. I'll be more than happy to take. Okay. So today was our day 8, right? Okay, guys, take care. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow, same time.